Hold on to your seats because the hip-hop chessboard just cracked wide open, and the absolute panic radiating out of Papoose and Claressa'S camp is officially reaching a fever pitch. Have you ever watched a masterclass in public destruction play out in absolute silence? Because while everybody on the internet was busy clowning Remy Ma for staying quiet over the last 12 months, she was quietly engineering the most calculated, coldest, and most devastating checkmate the industry has seen in a generation. Think about it. Did you really believe the Bronx legend, a woman with 2 decades of survival under her belt, was just going to sit back and let a young Olympic boxer and an estranged husband rewrite her legacy on live television? Absolutely not. The latest receipts hitting the internet right now are proving that every single move Remy Ma made, from the calculated silence to the strategic network drops, was preloaded ammunition designed for this exact day. Papoose is out here looking visibly rattled. Claressa is moving in pure survival mode on social media, and the master template Remy Ma laid out is officially detonating in their faces. Before we unravel the absolute chaos happening behind the curtain and expose the panic signals leaking from their camp, do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn those post notifications all the way up because this entire arc is about to shift permanently. You are watching the most surgical reclamation project of the year, so buckle up. Let me break this down from the absolute beginning, because if you want to understand the sheer level of terror running through Papoose and Claressa'S right now, you have to look at the foundations of the empire they thought they could just walk over. We're talking about Remy Ma. This is not just any regular female artist who got her feelings hurt and decided to post a couple of sad quotes on her Instagram story at 3 in the morning while crying into a glass of wine. No, this is the Reminisce Smith, the Bronx survivor, the woman who stood toe-to-toe with the absolute heaviest hitters in the history of hip-hop, took a 6-year prison bid right at the absolute peak of her commercial success, walked back out through those iron gates, and immediately reclaimed her seat at the high table without asking anybody for permission. Her pen is legendary, her respect in the streets is unquestioned, and her understanding of human psychology is so deep, it should honestly be studied in universities. For 2 decades, she has been media trained by the absolute most brutal environments the entertainment industry can throw at you. She knows how the internet moves, she knows how narratives are constructed, and most importantly, she knows exactly how to let her enemies hang themselves with their own rope. And then, on the other side of this equation, you have Papoose. Now, nobody is saying Papoose cannot rap. The man has spent years branding himself as the lyrical savior of New York, the king of the underground, the husband who stood by his woman through the darkest times. But let us be completely honest with the math here. Culturally, commercially, and historically, Papoose has always operated at a completely different altitude than the woman he married. He was respected in the lyrical corners, sure, but he never possessed that mainstream gravity-pulling star power that Remy Ma commands the very second she steps into a room. So when you take that pre-existing dynamic and you suddenly inject a 20-something, hyper-aggressive, loud, and deeply controversial Olympic boxer like Claressa'S into the mix, the entire structural integrity of that household was bound to create a massive cultural explosion. Claressa'S is an undisputed champion in the boxing ring, 2 gold medals around her neck, completely undefeated against anyone wearing gloves. But her fatal mistake was believing that the rules of the squared circle apply to the lawless wilderness of the hip-hop internet. She walked into this situation with a massive boxing ego, thinking she could treat a legendary hip-hop marriage like an autobiography tour, turning every single microphone she could find into a press conference about her new relationship. The second the rumors went public, the internet completely detonated. People were laughing, memes were flying, and everyone was looking directly at Remy Ma, waiting for the classic Bronx explosion. The entire culture expected her to drop a 5-minute diss track over a classic boom-bap beat, or show up on morning radio screaming and crying, or send a swarm of lawyers into a highly publicized media war. The industry was practically drooling at the mouth waiting for the drama. But instead of giving them the circus they wanted, Remy Ma did the absolute last thing anybody with a functioning imagination expected her to do. She chose absolute, ice-cold surgical silence. She didn't react, she didn't scream, and she didn't throw a single punch. Instead, she just stood back and watched the 2 of them step directly into the spotlight, completely unaware that the spotlight was actually the laser sight of a sniper rifle. What we are witnessing right now is the complete exposure of a fake public narrative that Papoose and Claressa have been trying to sell to the world for the last 12 months. They wanted the world to believe they were the new power couple, the undefeated champion and the loyal lyricist moving on to bigger and better things while the ex-wife sat in the dark, broken-hearted and left behind. But the reality that is leaking out of their camp right now paints a completely different picture. It is a picture of absolute, unadulterated panic. The industry insiders are talking, the whispers behind the curtain are getting louder, and the receipts that are starting to surface are proving that Papoose and Claressa are realizing in real time that they didn't escape a marriage, they walked directly into a trap. Look at the way Claressa'S has been moving on social media lately. The confidence is completely gone, replaced by a hyper-reactive defensive posture that shows she is swinging at ghosts. Every single time a fan mentions Remy Ma's name in her comment section, she triggers a massive multi-paragraph response or threatens to sue a YouTuber, or threatens to fight a street fighter in a stadium. That is not the behavior of a woman who is winning. That is the behavior of someone who realizes the ground beneath her feet is actively crumbling. She thought she was entering a standard celebrity feud where she could use her athletic status to look like the young, fresh underdog. But she quickly realized she is dealing with a grandmaster who doesn't even need to look in her direction to destroy her reputation. And Papoose is looking even worse in this entire equation. The man who built his entire 20-year brand on the concept of loyalty, family, and being the ultimate stand-up husband is watching his legacy evaporate in front of the entire culture. The whispers from his inner circle suggest that he is absolutely furious about how smaller he has become in the public imagination over the past year. He went from being the co-star of a massive brand to looking like a secondary character in a chaotic internet reality show. And the most embarrassing part of it all is that he is still physically carrying the evidence of his true alignment. You cannot walk around branding yourself as completely moved on and deeply in love with a new woman when you still have a giant high-definition tattoo of your estranged wife's face painted onto your forearm. It is visible in every single couple's photo they take, every gym mirror selfie Claressa posts, and every red carpet appearance they attempt to make. Remy Ma is quite literally still embedded in his skin, running in the background of his entire life like a permanent app he cannot delete. This brings us directly to the psychological genius of Remy Ma's strategy, because she understood from day one that the absolute most effective way to defeat loud people is to starve them of oxygen. When you refuse to give your opponents a legitimate enemy to fight, they have no choice but to start fighting themselves. Remy Ma didn't need to put out a statement because she knew that if she just waited long enough, Claressa's own pride and Papoose's own financial and emotional complications would do all the heavy lifting for her. The public started noticing the cracks in the armor when Claressa's own former inner circle, people who had been by her side for over a decade, started leaking information about the true nature of this new relationship. The reports started dropping that this wasn't some grand romantic fairy tale, but rather a highly stressful, financially lopsided situation where the boxer was allegedly picking up the tabs on lavish trips while dealing with a man who was still deeply, emotionally, and legally tied to his past. The internet started digging into the receipts, connecting the dots back to everything Remy Ma had implicitly hinted at months prior. When Remy dropped that legendary, understated line about someone stabbing a salad like they were waiting for their man to come home, the internet laughed it off as a simple joke. But now, in the cold light of July 2026, that line looks like a prophetic warning. She wasn't just making fun of a diet, she was highlighting the deep, underlying insecurity of a woman who knew she didn't truly possess the man she was standing next to. She compressed 5 different layers of psychological warfare into a single sentence, resetting the status of the entire household without ever having to raise her voice or step out of character. This entire situation took an even more sinister turn for Papoose and Claressa when the cultural calendar aligned perfectly in Remy Ma's favor during the massive New York hometown celebration. You had the entire 5 boroughs out in the streets, a generational cultural moment where every single legendary icon from Fat Joe to French Montana, Max B, Lil Kim, and the entire New York Hall of Fame was standing arm in arm on a massive moving float. And right at the absolute center of that float, holding the microphone and commanding the entire city, was Remy Ma. The visual representation of power was undeniable. She had the backing of the entire culture, the streets, the industry, and the history. Meanwhile, Papoose, the self-proclaimed king of New York, was absolutely nowhere to be found. He wasn't on the float, he wasn't on the parade route, and he wasn't even mentioned in the building. He was completely erased from the very city he claimed to rule, while Claressa was stuck watching the entire spectacle from a phone screen thousands of miles away in Flint or Aruba, realizing that no matter how many titles she wins in a ring, she will never, ever hold the keys to the cultural kingdom that Remy Ma controls with a single phone call. The realization of this cultural displacement is exactly what has sent their camp into an absolute tailspin of panic, leading to leaked frantic phone calls to media outlets and desperate attempts to secure counter-interviews before the real damage begins. And the damage did begin in the most mainstream way possible, because right as that hometown momentum reached its peak, Lifetime dropped the ultimate corporate headshot with a project titled Don't Trust the Girls Upstairs, proving that while Papoose and Claressa were busy playing checkers on the internet, Remy Ma was busy signing multi-million-dollar network distribution deals that transformed her personal trauma into high-yielding intellectual property that pays her every single time it streams. The monetization of this entire scandal through mainstream television networks was the exact moment the collective panic inside Papoose and Claressa's camp shifted from a private anxiety to an absolute public emergency. When a major network like Lifetime puts a green light behind a project with a title that specifically references the most toxic, heavily rumored aspect of your private life, you are no longer dealing with a standard internet rumor mill that will blow over in 48 hours. You are dealing with a corporate-funded subtweet that has an infinite shelf life and a global marketing budget. The rumors had already been circulating for months that Claressa had allegedly been acting as the supportive friend in Remy's digital messages, while simultaneously maneuvering to position herself next to Papoose the very second the marriage showed a public fracture. By turning that exact narrative into a mainstream movie title, Remy Ma didn't just fire a warning shot. She established a permanent stream of residuals rooted entirely in the public embarrassment of the two people who underestimated her. Insiders close to the production leaked information that the corporate offices were fully aware of the cultural timing, intentionally aligning the release with Remy's massive hometown summer rollout to maximize the emotional impact on the target audience. The fallout from this corporate strategy has triggered a massive, chaotic wave of damage control behind the scenes that the public is only just starting to notice through the erratic behavioral patterns of both Papoose and Claressa. According to deep industry sources and leaked communications from independent media consultants who were briefly approached by their team, there have been frantic, late-night phone calls placed to high-level music executives and sports publicists over the last few weeks. The mission was simple but completely desperate. They needed to secure a major, high-visibility platform for a joint counter-narrative interview to salvage their rapidly deteriorating reputations. The problem they encountered, however, was that the mainstream media landscape has completely closed its doors to their side of the story. Major networks and top-tier morning radio shows allegedly passed on the pitch because they realized that aligning with a highly reactive, defensive narrative against a beloved hip-hop icon like Remy Ma is an absolute lose-lose situation for corporate advertisers. When the culture has already decided who the grandmaster is, nobody wants to buy commercial slots for the people trapped on the wrong side of the board. This media blackout has left Claressa'S in a state of hyper-reactive isolation, forcing her to utilize her own personal social media platforms as a makeshift battlefield, which is precisely the worst tactical move she could possibly make. Without a professional PR team filtering her thoughts, she has been engaging in highly public, emotional meltdowns on live broadcasts that showcase the exact level of panic Remy's silence was designed to induce. In these multi-hour streams, she can be seen pacing around her gym, shouting at anonymous internet commentators, and issuing wild legal threats against independent video creators who are simply analyzing the public timeline. She even went as far as threatening to physically confront street fighters in sanctioned events just to prove her dominance, completely failing to realize that every single high-pitched scream and aggressive gesture only serves to validate Remy's original thesis. She is attempting to fight a cultural war with physical athletic tools, which is the equivalent of bringing boxing gloves to a psychological chess match. The public watches these displays not with admiration for a champion, but with the morbid curiosity of an audience watching a massive train derailment in slow motion. Meanwhile, the financial reality of the situation is starting to leak out through court documents and bank records that paint an incredibly grim picture of what is actually happening behind the closed doors of this new relationship. While they attempted to project an image of an elite, high-earning power couple traveling on private jets and purchasing luxury estates, The actual receipts tell a story of immense financial strain and desperate restructuring. Leaked financial audits from independent promotional companies indicate that the constant delays in Claressa'S upcoming fight schedule have created a massive cash flow crisis within her management circle. When you train for months for a high-stakes championship bout, and the date keeps getting pushed back due to administrative chaos and promotional disagreements, the overhead costs of maintaining an elite training camp begin to eat alive your liquid assets. To counter this, anonymous sources within their immediate social circle have confirmed that Papoose has been desperately trying to secure independent funding through underground sports betting syndicates and high-interest private loans, completely mirroring the exact money management issues Remy Ma had publicly hinted at during the early stages of their separation. The financial pressure has exposed a deeper level of hypocrisy regarding the narrative of absolute independence that Papoose has been trying to maintain ever since he stepped away from the shadow of Remy's massive career. For nearly 2 decades, he built an identity around the concept of the independent powerhouse who didn't need major label backing or mainstream compromises to survive in the music industry. However, internal emails from independent distribution companies reveal that his team has been quietly shopping his back catalog for a fraction of its original valuation, looking for an immediate financial injection to cover the escalating costs of his new lifestyle. The irony of the King of New York having to liquidate his musical assets, while his estranged wife is collecting massive upfront checks from major television networks, is an absolute mathematical disaster for his public brand. It proves that the independent stance was only sustainable when it was anchored by the massive commercial viability and cultural protection that Remy Ma provided to the household brand name. As the financial and media walls continue to close in on them, the emotional strain between Papoose and Claressa has reportedly reached a point of absolute volatility, leading to dramatic public scenes that their inner circle has been working overtime to suppress. Witnesses at an elite athletic training facility in Florida reported a highly intense, verbal altercation between the two in the VIP lounge area just last week. The argument allegedly centered around Papoose's complete inability to finalize his legal separation from Remy Ma, with Claressa openly expressing her frustration over the fact that she is financially supporting a lifestyle while remaining secondary to a marriage that refuses to officially die. The paperwork remains unsigned, the legal filings remain stuck in bureaucratic limbo, and the giant tattoo of Remy's face remains permanently etched into his skin, serving as a daily, unavoidable reminder that he is legally and emotionally a tenant in another woman's universe. This structural instability has created a massive rift among their remaining industry allies, who are quickly realizing that standing next to this sinking ship is a direct threat to their own corporate relationships. Major hip-hop figures who once frequented Papoose's studio sessions have quietly stopped reposting his content, and prominent athletic sponsors who were looking to sign major endorsement deals with Claressa have suddenly paused negotiations pending a full review of her recent social media behavior. The corporate world does not invest millions of dollars into an athlete who spends her nights arguing with teenagers in comment sections about an older rap legend's marital history. The leverage has completely evaporated, leaving them isolated on an island of their own making, while the woman who put them there continues to travel the world, attend elite fashion weeks, and receive standing ovations from the most powerful gatekeepers in the music industry. What makes this section of the timeline so completely terrifying for their camp is the realization that Remy Ma hasn't even begun the actual rollout of her primary musical asset. All of this current destruction, the mainstream movie, the hometown float dominance, the public exposure of their financial complications, has occurred entirely during the pre-marketing phase of her upcoming project. She has managed to reduce her estranged husband's public standing to an opening act and completely destabilize an undefeated world champion boxer without ever releasing an official single, sitting down for a standard media interview, or typing a single word on a social media platform. She has allowed the natural gravity of their own poor decisions and emotional insecurity to pull them down into the mud, proving that true power in the modern entertainment landscape is not measured by who screams the loudest, but by who controls the structural layout of the room. The panic inside their camp is rooted in the realization that if this is what the pre-roll looks like, the actual detonation of the final project is going to completely erase whatever microscopic remains of their public reputation are left standing on the board, leading directly into the ultimate systemic collapse of their entire operation. The systemic collapse inside Papoose and Claressa'S camp is no longer just a private corporate crisis. It has officialized into a complete, full-scale institutional meltdown that is drawing the direct attention of high-level legal teams and mainstream entertainment investigators. The final chip has officially dropped, and the internal documents leaking out of their immediate management circles indicate that the panic has reached the absolute highest levels of their professional operations. We are no longer talking about simple arguments in VIP lounges or defensive social media broadcasts. We are now looking at the immediate threat of federal financial probes and sweeping breach of contract lawsuits that threaten to permanently dismantle the remaining infrastructure of their careers. The industry is currently buzzing over a series of leaked compliance notices from major athletic commissions and television distribution partners that show both Papoose and Claressa are facing severe professional penalties due to the erratic, uncoordinated nature of their recent business decisions. According to highly classified reports obtained from independent media auditors, the constant delays in Claressa's championship fight schedule have triggered automatic penalty clauses within her primary network broadcast contracts. When a television network allocates millions of dollars in production budgets and programming slots for a live primetime sporting event, they require absolute operational stability from the headlining athlete. By allowing her personal life to completely overshadow her professional training camp, and by engaging in highly volatile public feuds that alienate corporate advertisers, Claressa's team has effectively violated the strict brand safety guidelines established by her corporate backers. The networks are reportedly preparing to activate their exit strategies, looking to recoup massive upfront promotional investments from her management company, which would instantly push her promotional firm into complete bankruptcy. The legal jeopardy deepens significantly on Papoose's side of the ledger, where independent entertainment lawyers are starting to look very closely at the financial structures of his remaining independent music ventures. Internal communications from his digital distribution platform indicate that high-level legal inquiries have been made regarding the true ownership of his back catalog, because his legal separation from Remy Ma remains completely unfinalized, and because there is no legally binding prenuptial agreement protecting his independent musical assets. A massive percentage of his historical royalties and publishing rights are technically still classified as marital property under state law. Every single dollar he has been quietly attempting to liquidate to fund his new lifestyle with Claressa is subject to a massive, retroactive legal freeze the very second Remy's primary legal team decides to enforce their rights in a formal court of law. This legal vulnerability explains exactly why Papoose has been in an absolute state of paralysis regarding the unsigned divorce paperwork that has been sitting on his desk for the last 12 months. He understands with absolute certainty that the moment he puts his signature on those documents, he will be forced to undergo a comprehensive, court-mandated financial discovery process that will completely expose his current cash flow crisis to the public record. It will reveal that the image of the wealthy, independent hip-hop mogul was entirely propped up by the corporate leverage and domestic stability provided by Remy Ma's mainstream career. The realization that his financial survival depends entirely on keeping his legal ties to his estranged wife active, while trying to maintain a public relationship with an incredibly impatient new partner, is the ultimate psychological trap, one that has left him completely isolated from his traditional industry allies. The internal pressure within their circle has become so immense that high-level resignations have begun to take place among their immediate staff members. Over the past 72 hours, 3 of Claressa's primary public relations coordinators and 2 of Papoose's longtime street promotion managers have quietly scrubbed all professional associations with the couple from their official portfolios. Leaked exit emails from these staff members detail an absolute nightmare working environment characterized by non-stop screaming matches, frantic late-night commands to delete incriminating social media evidence, and an absolute refusal to follow professional crisis management advice. The professionals are actively running away from the blast radius because they realize that when the final asset drops from Remy Ma's camp, the resulting cultural explosion will instantly destroy the career longevity of anyone standing within close proximity to the target. As the professional infrastructure continues to completely evaporate, the public backlash has shifted from casual internet memes into a coordinated boycott movement from mainstream consumer groups. Corporate sponsors who manage major athletic apparel lines and luxury automotive brands have reportedly received thousands of complaints from consumers who are completely turned off by the aggressive, defensive behavior displayed by the couple on a daily basis. The modern corporate environment is highly risk-averse. They do not want their brand logos associated with an athlete who threatens to sue media commentators or a rapper who liquidates his musical history while carrying a permanent monument to his ex-wife on his physical body. The major endorsement deals that were scheduled to be finalized for the upcoming fiscal quarter have been officially withdrawn, creating an immediate, catastrophic vacuum in their projected earnings. The sheer desperation of their camp was fully exposed when an anonymous source leaked a series of highly confidential pitch decks that Papoose's team had been quietly circulating to low-tier international reality television networks. The pitch decks detailed a highly sensationalized, unfiltered look into their new relationship, explicitly promising to deliver explosive domestic drama, raw behind-the-scenes screaming matches, and direct confrontations regarding the Remy Ma situation in exchange for an immediate upfront production advance. The fact that the self-proclaimed king of New York, a man who once looked down on mainstream commercialization, is now reduced to selling his personal relationship stress to international cable channels for survival money is the absolute definition of a systemic collapse. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have completely run out of legitimate cards to play on the board. While they continue to scramble for any microscopic piece of leverage to keep their heads above water, the woman who orchestrated this entire cultural shift is calmly preparing to deliver the final, definitive stroke of the campaign. The latest whispers from the highest echelons of the hip-hop industry indicate that Remy Ma has officially completed the primary asset of her multi-platform rollout. The project is currently sitting securely in a corporate vault, protected by strict non-disclosure agreements, and backed by a massive global distribution network that is simply waiting for the exact right moment to open the floodgates. It is a project that will completely codify the history of this entire triangle, transforming the strategic omissions and quiet punchlines of the past 12 months into a permanent, undeniable cultural monument that will remain active for decades. The sheer contrast in operational execution between the two camps is the ultimate lesson in modern media warfare. On one side, you have a highly disorganized, panicking couple running out of cash, losing their professional staff, and destroying their corporate relationships in full public view. On the other side, you have a solitary grandmaster who has managed to control the entire narrative flow of the genre through absolute ring generalship, strategic network partnerships, and a deep, unwavering patience. She allowed them to believe they were winning the early weeks of the media cycle, encouraging them to step deeper and deeper into the spotlight until they had completely detached themselves from their traditional support networks and left themselves entirely vulnerable to a systemic corporate strike. The realization that they have been completely outthought, outpositioned, and outmonetized has effectively broken the spirit of the opposition. The latest photographs circulating in the media show a visibly deflated Papoose walking through airports with his head down, desperately trying to conceal the high-definition tattoo that still binds him to his past, while Claressa continues to post increasingly erratic, uncoordinated defensive statements to a dwindling audience that has completely lost respect for her championship status. They are realizing, in the coldest way imaginable, that you cannot fight a war against a woman who has converted your entire existence into her personal intellectual property, and as the countdown to the final release reaches its absolute final seconds, the complete structural failure of their empire stands as a stark warning to anyone else who thinks they can step onto the chessboard against a true icon without understanding the basic mechanics of the game. So there you have it, the absolute whole board laid out in front of you, and the math is finally matching in the coldest way possible. We are officially sitting on the edge of a massive cultural detonation, and when that vault finally opens, there will be absolutely nowhere left for the opposition to hide. But now I want to hear directly from you, the certified investigators in the comments section. Are you standing with Team Remy and the masterclass strategy she is running? Or do you think this is all a massive pattern recognition stretch and they still have a way out of this trap? Is that final project going to completely reset hip-hop history, or are Papoose and Claressa going to find a way to flip the table before the final clock runs out? Drop your thoughts, your theories, and your receipts below because I am reading every single line of the chaos you all break down. And if you want to make sure you are in the front row when the real checkmate drops, do me a massive solid right now. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video out to everyone who is still sleeping on the strategy, and make sure those post notifications are turned all the way up because the second the vault opens, the receipts video is dropping right here, and you are not going to want to miss a single second of the fallout.